Hello and welcome to this edition of Velocity Kinetics. Today it's a weird version of We Answer, because normally we would come up with an answer to the question. But today it's a different way of looking at it. We are looking at whether there's too much technology in cars these days. And there's a lot of pros and cons to say, yes, it's good to have a lot of tech in cars, and there's cons to say, no, it shouldn't be that much. This has been sparked by an article I recently saw on Drive, where it was about a Tesla and its autopilot feature and having a crash. Now, on the one hand, technology is a good thing, because without tech, we wouldn't even be at this stage of car development, and this is not exactly the most pinnacle of any automotive achievement. As great as I find the Baleno, it is not the highest pinnacle of automotive achievement. Things like Aston Martins, Ferraris, Lamborghinis, Bugattis, Koenigsegg's, Bugattis, they are the pinnacle of all automotive tech. But if we didn't have improvements, we wouldn't have the three-point harness, we wouldn't have aircon, cruise control, we wouldn't have semi-automatic gearboxes, fully automatic gearboxes, paddle shift, electronic overrides, cruise control, traction control, stability control, rear wheel or front wheel drive, all wheel drive. It's quite impressive. Well, I think really maybe we need to be looking at where the tech is applied. So there have been undeniable gains, and particularly, for instance, by ways of miles per gallon. That's immensely improved. There are ways of immense improvements within the exhaust system and minimising the amount of carbon waste out the back, and better fuel induction. Like for instance, on this one we've got the 3-cylinder turbo engine, which many manufacturers have got their own versions of, which Ford started, and then you've got let's say Honda with the Power Boost, and Suzuki with Booster Jet, or formerly Booster Jet should I say, and so on and so forth. You know, it's quite a lot of improvements in and out. But I think where technology needs to question its encroachment is inside the vehicle itself. I was reading something a friend of mine had posted on Facebook. It's someone I went to secondary school with. Well, Facebook friend, should I say. I've not spoken to them guy for a very, very long time. But it mentioned that a lot of farmers are looking for tractors from sort of the 80s and 90s where they can, and general farm equipment from that era where they can, because they haven't got the computers on them that require the maintenance. They're so much easier to maintain. And I was talking to a colleague who had a used BMW, and she reckoned it was the worst experience she ever had, not because the engine and things like that kept going, but because of the constant electronic faults that it kept developing. And she couldn't just take it to a friendly garage down the road. She had to take it back to BMW with the nature of the problems all the time, and that's BMW money to get it repaired. Should the technology be more universal? So more sharing? Maybe. For example, a Suzuki Sways and a Toyota Corolla Estate, they're one and the same vehicle. Suzuki rebadged the Toyota as a Suzuki. So if something happened to one, you can get it serviced at the other. That might be a way to get around some of those problems, but can you really see the likes of Mercedes and BMW teaming up to share electronics? I can't see that happening. As it is, they've got problems within their own divisions of AMG versus M, sharing tech within the business sometimes. It's not the easiest and most straightforward of things to do. What I think needs to change in the attitude towards the technology of the car, whilst autopilot is a fantastic idea and might be a way forward, the problem is it's encouraging people to drive worse, if that makes sense. People don't pay attention on the road as much as they should. People drive a whole lot more aggressively. It's just not as good as it should be. And then you've got more and more things like touchscreens being added in to the into vehicles. Now, you'd be wronged for using your mobile phone, your iPhone, your Android phone, your iPad, that sort of thing. You'd be wronged for using that on the road. So why should that be any different with the thing in the middle of your console, and people moving away from the analog dials for your rev counter and your speedo to the digital dials. Now, digital, I guess, makes it easier to get your speeds correct, but what was wrong with the analog is my counterpoint. Why do I need something that can potentially short out? Why do I need something that can potentially short out and give me and I have no idea of how fast I'm going, versus something with a needle that's worked forever? Are we making improvements for the sake of making improvements? I'm a fan of improvements myself. For instance, if they made a new Balena that was bigger, I'd probably be trying to be one of the first in lines to get one, if I could, because I'd see that as an improvement. But improvement for improvement's sake, I'm not sure I agree with that. Granted, you've got to try an improvement to know if it works, but we come back round to the but if it doesn't work, it was just for improvement's sake. A lot of it comes down to cost, unfortunately, but I can't think that filling your dashboard with electronics is cheaper than the traditional dials. I just can't see how that is cheaper. But come back to particularly Tesla and Polestar, and I think it was, granted this is a far different extreme of vehicle, but I think it was the Koenigsegg Regera. I've got monster touchscreen things on the dashboard. What was wrong with a dial for setting up your aircon, for example? Now, don't get me wrong, for years luxury cars seemed to be just a swath of buttons. You could buy a nice Beamer, Volvo, Merc, you could buy one of those years ago, and there'd be a button everywhere for just about any purpose. So I think really we need to split some of the tech. So things like your fan control, so your air control, your demisting control, your fan speed, aircon, they need to be buttons. Because if we look at the review of the Swift, the hybrid Swift, those buttons are nice and chunky, and they're very simple, and they're very easy to muscle memory. Whereas, depending on how the tablet's been set up and what proprietary software they're using, if they're using any software at all, it might not be as easy to then find your way through to your airspeed. You know, or if you've accidentally left your finger on there and accidentally sent the fan speed up to the max. You know, where does it end? Then that's something else to go wrong on an MOT. Well, the dials won't go wrong on an MOT. In fact, they're not even part of the MOT. But if the tablet starts going wrong as part of the MOT, well, not as part of the MOT, just starts going wrong, then that will be an electrical fault. And then what are the knock-on effects for that? It goes on and on and on. Ultimately, we need to think about what tech we apply in vehicles. So hybrid tech, self-charging, or plug-in, or any other variant of hybrid, fine, fantastic. More refinement, please. Petrol and diesel combustion, whilst admittedly it is on its way out, there's nothing to say we can't make more refinement to it before it completely goes. Who's to say we don't look at making better compressions in the engine? Why not look at more lagless turbos, maybe more combining in twin turbo, triple turbo if needs be. Just ways of getting as much out of a smaller drop of petrol as we can. I'm all for that. Safer headlights, whether that's position or just the way the light is projected out, because some headlights are horribly bright and you're constantly blinded by them. That sort of improvement, brilliant. Aerodynamic improvements, fantastic, because that'll aid the miles per gallon question. Tyre improvements, again, if that improves the rolling resistance and creates more miles per gallon and better performance, I'm all for it. More sustainable materials to make the car out of, like Porsche a little while ago made a Cayman out of carbon fibre that had a plant weave in it, and that was very strong, very light, and meant to be a hell of a lot more recyclable at the end of its lifetime. Why not look at something like that? Why can't we, rather than cheap metals and plastics, is there a more environmentally friendly alternative? Volvo, no, not Volvo, well, technically it is Volvo, Polestar made an entirely vegan friendly interior for the Polestar 2. Why can't we look, especially if that is more ecologically sound, why can't we look at more things like that? Well, you know, you can get your bamboo toothbrush, bamboo underwear, that sort of thing. Like, maybe there's places for things like bamboo and things in the construction of the car, whether that's, and I say construction meaning anything from the chassis to finishing off the interior. Why can't we look at that sort of thing? Why has tech got to be tablets and smart tech? Because it's not safe to use at speed. Why not? Why can't we use geographically locked speedos? You know, if it knows you're on the A1, then your car can't go above 70 miles an hour, no matter how hard you try. Why can't that be a thing? But yet being able to choose on some vehicles how long your headlights stay on after the car goes off is a thing. I think we need to re-look at what technology we're researching and prioritising to go into the car, and think about more proper improvements. We don't need to reinvent the wheel, we don't need to improve the wheel, we just need to find ways to remake it, if that makes sense. Same design, same way, same concept, just an alternative way of doing it. So we're going to finish this version of We Answer with, you know, are we using too much technology in cars? On a bit of an unusual note. Like I said, normally it finishes off with a yes or a no, or that's my opinion, you're entitled to yours. But it's really a giant question mark for the end of this We Answer, and I'd like to hear your comments in the link below, and on the Facebook page, on YouTube. Subscribe to the YouTube channel, like the Facebook page. I really would like to know your thoughts on it. Is it something that needs to be looked at, something that needs to be readdressed, or not? My personal final opinion, we need to look at it to improve it from a driving standpoint, to help people's standards of driving improve, to improve the journey people are making, to improve what it's like for everyone around. So, I say the tyres, the engine, the emissions, what the interior is made out of, there are better places we can look for improvement rather than splashing the car full of smart technology. That might be my final, that might be the best way to sum up my thoughts on this. Yes, fill it with technology, but not smart technology. We fill it with old school, proper engineering, and then when that's all as good as we can make it, then we can look at things like better use for tablets and touchscreen and things in the car. Or, like I said, we would limit what goes on the touchscreen, so you'd limit it to just the sat-nav and your media, so your playlist or your tunes or whatever it is you put on, you limit it to things like that. You don't just load it up with fan control and this control and that control. But like I said, I'm not going to be completely right on this, but I think, well, I'd like to know your thoughts. So, drive safe, look after yourselves, donate to the PayPal link, paypal.me/VelocityKinetics, and we'll see you for episode 98, I think we're rapidly approaching. Oh, before we go, for episode 100, coming up, I put out a post on the Facebook page a little while ago, asking for, well, actually a little while ago, I think it was 3 days ago, from the time of this recording, asking for people to record a short video of themselves for about a minute or two, explaining why they love driving. So please do, and send me the link to it, and then we'll arrange file transfer and permissions for use. And the only thing I need you to do is talk a bit like this to your camera, tell me why it is you love driving. Don't put yourself in any danger, don't strap a GoPro to your car and fly around corners and things like that. I just want you to talk, and I'd like it in front of a plainish background. And for those who do submit and I can use the videos for, you'll see why I ask for a plainish background where I can. But take care of yourselves, and we'll see you next time.